It's time we talked.
Hi, I'm Mark Hamill, and for a comic book fan like me, it's a real treat to be able to talk with three of the most important people behind Justice League Unlimited. Why don't you introduce yourself, guys, and tell us what you do?
I'm Dwayne McDuffie, producer.
I'm Bruce Timm, producer.
James Tucker, producer.
Okay, now we're talking about an 8-episode arc in a 13-episode season, basically.
Basically, yeah.
And what are the problems of writing an arc that's that inclusive? I mean, do you also want it to stand alone in a way, or make it an out-and-out cliffhanger?
Ideally, you want to have the episodes be both. That you could just turn the show on any day and go, be able to watch that episode and be, satisfied and not feel that it was confusing because you didn't know what came before and what came after. But at the same time, it does kind of connect in an overall broader arc. So it was tricky.
One thing that I thought was intriguing is there are clues, or at least foreshadowing, of story elements in this arc that go all the way back to like Brave New World and some of the episodes on Superman. Now, is that just by accident, or did you go back?
It was all luck.
It was luck. Did you go back over old episodes and say, if we took a nugget here and here, we could do this?
Yeah.
If the Justice League ever went rogue, what do you think would be the result?
That's moot.
Humor me. In every single scenario, you beat us. Badly. But that was before Cadmus.
Cadmus was from the comic books, or was it an original idea?
It was from the comics, yeah.
How is it different, and how did you adapt it for the animated show?
It's quite a bit different. I mean, the Cadmus thing in the comics was it wasn't quite as political. It was much more of a mad scientist think tank. Right. And we kind of connected it to this whole big, shadowy government conspiracy thing.
Right.
And when we plotted the very first episode in that arc, it was actually Fearful Symmetry. When we were talking about doing it, we realized that we had done a lot of different kind of shadowy government conspiracy episodes from previous series, but especially in Superman, and we went, hey, you know what, we can, instead of those all being separate conspiracies, they could all be part of the same conspiracy. Right. So it kind of like expanded the scope of our show beyond just Justice League Unlimited. It expanded both backward to Superman and Batman, and even forward to the Batman Beyond show. So it was kind of just blind luck, really.
It was like all the pieces were there right in front of us, and we were like, yeah, remember when we did that, and remember that character did that, and it was like, oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, and then we could put the Zeta robots in there.
This actually works, yeah,
totally.
Right.
It was
all connected.
Did you know how long it was going to be? I mean, did you have a target of X amount of episodes, or you just wanted to, you did?
Well, we
knew we wanted to do a big arc, right?
Yeah.
I can shut down Cadmus without killing Luthor.
Carry on, then. If you're wrong, it's not like it's the end of the world, right?
It's much deeper than a child's cartoon should be, because you're asking, what is the nature of a superhero? Right. Do we need superheroes? Why are there superheroes? And one thing that's interesting is you have Cadmus. I mean, the way I played the Joker, too, I didn't play him as a villain. He was just an unappreciated genius.
Right.
It's your problem if you don't get me. And Cadmus, I love the fact that Cadmus, they're not twirling their mustaches.
Right.
They really think what they're doing is good.
Yeah, well, and that was a conscious choice.
Well, I was going to say, they started out pretty much evil. In the first couple episodes, they're definitely, not on the up and up. But then in the Doomsday Sanction episode, when Batman accosts Amanda Waller in her bathroom, which I think is a neat touch, and he just starts going at her and saying, I don't know what you guys are up to, and it's like, if you harm the American people, we're going to come down on you. And she says, if we're a threat to the American people, and she lays out, boom, 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 this is what we're doing, this is what you guys are capable of, this is what you did in another dimension, and Batman's kind of like, darn, she's kind of got me.
She is kind of
and it's
right.
like, she's making these really valid points. So it's like from that point on, it's like it's not just all black and white anymore. There's a big, gray area. And that whole episode, it's all kind of set up that way to show that the Justice League and the whole Cadmus group are kind of two sides of the same coin.
You're making a statement that they're pretty much the same kind of entities.
What were you thinking? You're gonna kill Superman and everyone else on the island.
We have to sanction Doomsday. We were going to get to Superman somewhere down the line, and we've been trying to stop drug traffic from San Vaquero for years. The way I see it, 3 birds, 1 stone.
Call it off.
The actors that you're able to attract. Carl Lumley and
CCH Pounder. And
CCH Pounder,
J.K.
Robert
Simmons.
Foxworth.
Yeah.
I mean, these are actors that you'd kill to work with in any medium, and it's fun to see these dignified, really gifted actors
Playing comic book characters,
comic book characters. Cool. I know I get a real delight out of that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. I mean, a lot of these guys are so good. They have no clue. They don't have the background we have in the comic books, but they have what's on the printed page, and they're good actors.
I was going to say the best example of that is CCH Pounder. She'd come in, and we had sent her the script beforehand, and clearly hasn't read it. And she'll come in. She'd already played Amanda Waller like in maybe 5 or 6 episodes. She'd come in and she'd go, "Okay, so who am I playing again?" We'd say, "You're playing Amanda Waller." "Okay, I vaguely remember that character." It's like, okay.
Who is she again?
Yeah, and then we would just roughly tell her what the scene was about. She'd go, "Okay, I think I got it." And she'd just give us basically a cold reading right off the page without any preparation whatsoever, and it would just be amazing. And it's like, wow, she's not even trying hard, and she's giving us this great stuff. So it was like, yeah, she was.
And it's a multifaceted character because you at various times hate this woman.
Absolutely.
Then you really admire her, and then especially it's poignant at the end to see her in epilogue. And she's really, like you say, I mean, it's a really awesome and multi-layered performance, no question about that.
And she got there without half trying. It was just like, wow.
So I don't know, any other actor anecdotes come to mind? Who did you meet that you never thought you'd meet doing this series?
On this series?
I was pretty stoked when we got J.K. in for the first time because I've been such a fan of him for the long time.
Too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, please, J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
Jameson, and who did he play in this?
He played General Eiling. And again, it wasn't like a real super meaty part or anything. It just, his name came up while we were brainstorming ideas for casting. I said, "Oh yeah, he'd be great." And we didn't think he'd ever do it, but he's like, "Oh, sure, I'm not doing anything that day. I'll come in and do it." And he's just, again, just a total pro and totally got it.
It's a bloomin' fortress crawling with superheroes. Even if we do get in, what chance do we have? We may as well be storming Heaven's Gate itself.
Let's talk about Task Force X. One of my favorite episodes. Certainly one of the hardest to pronounce.
Yeah, definitely.
How does that come about? Do you say, I want to do a caper movie kind of feel?
It started off literally mechanically. We realized that at that point in the arc, that every time Cadmus had gone up against the Justice League had cleaned their clock. We said, you know what? If Cadmus is going to be a credible threat, they're going to need to win one.
Right.
And so then we started just roughly throwing some ideas around, and we realized, hey, this would be a really good way to show the Cadmus point of view of the heroes. And then we started realizing, hey, wait a minute, this is kind of like an old caper movie. It's that whole genre where, you have a group of misfits, they have a job to do,
each one.
And the first half of the movie is the plotting of it, the planning, and that can be interesting. And then the second half is, them executing the plot, and then it goes wrong. And we realized as we were plotting it, you know what? We really need to show this episode completely from the point of view of the bad guys. So they have to be, oh my God, we're up here in the watchtower.
That was the best first to second draft improvement, I think, in my entire time on the show.
How so?
First draft was sort of third person, normal, omniscient. You're following everything around. When we switched to the point of view of the villains, it not only worked really well for the show, but it worked really well for the arc. It was a sort of a situation where we're in these characters' heads. They're going to space, to the scariest place in the world, and gods walk around in there, and they just have to go in there and steal their stuff and get out. And anybody in there is so powerful that they could kill all of them.
Yeah.
The Task Force X is a good example of something that I think stands alone, but then it's an important component to the overall.
Well, if you look at it, it worked really well at first. We had standalone episodes that had themes that ran through the whole season.
Right.
And it worked really, really well. But the closer we got to the end of the season, we just painted ourselves into a corner.
Yeah.
And seriously, the last 4 episodes are one episode.
It's one long episode,
right.
yeah.
From Flashpoint on, is it? Or
Question
Authority?
Yeah.
We just didn't say to be continued and hope nobody noticed.
Yeah.
I'm Captain Marvel, sir, and it is an honor. You're my biggest fan.
Excuse me?
I mean, I'm your biggest fan. Sorry, sir, it's a little overwhelming meeting you.
I wanted to do a Captain Marvel episode all the way back to, Superman. And
what was the resistance to that?
it wasn't necessarily there was any resistance. It's just that we could never really quite come up with a story that was quite right. And when we started plotting that episode, we went through about 5 or 6 different scenarios that all were just really dumb. It's like, and I was fine with that. I was like, you know what? I don't care if the reason is really dumb. I just want to see him fight. And but James was the one who kept, no, that's too dumb. You can't. It's just too obvious. You can't just do Marvel team up. They can't just meet and have a disagreement and fight. It had
What's
to be
your
real.
concept with Captain Marvel? Does he still have a 10-year-old brain? Is he still Billy Batson?
In our show,
Yeah, I mean, the way I wanted to play him was he's still a kid.
Yeah, it's like Big.
Yeah, very much like Big.
I kind of like that approach.
Well, the arc helped sell that too, because we needed something to kind of show us where Superman had moved to, because Superman generally was in the Boy Scout role.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That whole season, Luthor messing with him has sort of showed the chinks in his armor. And to put a character in who was very much like him physically, but was a lot more pure, really gave us a chance to show how much Superman had moved.
Did you really think you could take me down all by yourself?
Actually, yeah. But on the off chance I might have been wrong.
Ta-da! It's over, Lex.
Panic in the Sky, by the way, that's the title of a Superman episode from the George Reeves version.
Oh, there's 2 jokes in that. There's a Superman episode. Years later, DC did a crossover called Panic in the Sky, where the bad guy was Brainiac. So we actually waved at you and said, the bad guy's Brainiac if you're paying attention.
Oh.
That's right.
Hey, see, you guys brought a new
we think about this stuff way too hard.
To the geek-a-thon. But I know. But listen, I'm one of those geeks that really got thrilled the first time I saw Luthor team up with Joker. Now you have Luthor team up with Brainiac and bring like a new definition to
togetherness. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that scene alone, I mean, again, a great surprise. I had no idea, although you foreshadowed, because Lex is using super strength basically to trash Question.
Yeah.
Did you worry about how far to go? Because
Yep.
I'm trying to remember now. I thought, well, that's unusual because he's not known as.
Yeah.
And
he hits him across the room and breaks the desk.
Exactly, that kind of stuff.
And he also reacts to it himself.
Oh yeah, he's kind of going, wow.
Like he looks at his hands,
cool.
kind of like, what did I just,
Yeah, that's my favorite scene in that whole show. Is that whole confrontation between the Question and Luthor. I mean, you've never seen a cartoon where one of your heroes is attempting to murder the villain in cold blood.
Right. And he's insane.
He's not insane. He's being very rational. I mean, he's doing it for a good cause. It's not justifiable homicide, but he is doing it for the good of the world, so he thinks.
Yeah. Welcome, Justice League. You're just in time for the end of the world.
One of the things I want to ask is, you talked a little bit, Dwayne, about painting yourself into a corner as the end of the season.
Right, yeah.
So that answers some of my questions in that you become committed to, the tasks at hand. You have deadlines. You got to get this done, this done, this done. So you're really locked in early on without fully mapping out what happens at the end.
We had a vague idea.
Yeah, we kind of knew what the big fight was at the end, although we ended up changing it when we got to it.
Totally.
But you sort of have the big elements, like around episode 4, this is going to happen.
Well,
and
for
around
the longest time, we thought the big thing was going to be Luthor putting his brain into Amazo.
Yeah.
Amazo, that's right.
That was the thing. And then it was like, at some point, it was like, no, that can't be the thing. That's not. It was suddenly it wasn't a part of the whole idea of the. So then the Brainiac thing came.
Yeah, it sort of came
very
off.
last minute.
It came off theme. It was. We have the plot set up, but as we're developing individual stories, themes reveal themselves.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden,
you have to be flexible enough to go with what it suggests.
Absolutely.
I mean, we had no idea that Question and Huntress were going to play such an integral part of the Cadmus arc.
Right.
I mean, when we introduced them together as a couple in Double Date, that was pretty much going to be the end of Huntress at that point. But then but they had such good chemistry together. We realized that we could fold them into the Cadmus arc. It made his situation in the Cadmus arc that much more poignant to have somebody to play off against and to have somebody who cares for him besides just the audience caring for him.
Right.
And so things like that, it's a lot of it's just serendipity, a lot of it's blind luck, a lot of it's realizing that you have a really good piece there that you can use in a certain way. At one point, we knew the Question was going to be the one who kind of unraveled the whole Justice Lords thing. But at one point, we were talking about him teaming up with Lois Lane, of all people, during that whole investigation. And then we realized that wasn't even all that important. You know?
There was
it was
a
much
scene
more
where
interesting
he
to play
goes
it
to
with,
see her.
He goes to,
yeah. It was much more interesting to have that happen, you know, with.
And this is
with
obviously
the
after
Hunters.
you had considered having Batman be the one who steals the Cadmus.
Well, you know, at one point we had talked about of Batman actually switching sides.
Yeah, he was going to split off and be his own team and gather up some loose heroes we had.
Yeah, but we realized that was a dead end. We realized that there was no way you could have him do that without making either himself look like a jerk or making the Justice League look like jerks. It's like it would have been a great stunt to pull off to actually have him team up with Cadmus. But we realized there was no way out of it. So we had to leave ourselves a back door. I mean, arguably, even the last episode, Divided We Fall, is a bit of a cheat because we were setting up this whole Justice League versus the government thing, and then we introduced this third villain, the classic Architects of Fear scenario.
You know, that's true, but I've heard people say that we never pay that off, but we do.
We do
the
pay it off.
episode before
Absolutely.
the government attacks the Justice League and they fight.
I know.
You know, seeing, I don't know, I think seeing Luthor become president and having the Justice League attack the president is just wrong.
It is wrong. I agree. We would never do that. Absolutely.
And we
we
sort
were
of did,
teasing it. We were teasing up to it. We realized we couldn't actually do that, so we needed to take a left-hand curve at that point. And again, I can argue with myself. I would argue that if the whole question throughout the entire Cadmus arc is, you know, is it a good thing to have superheroes, these all-powerful superheroes, you know, kind of lording it over everybody and being there? The easy answer is, of course, because they live in a world where you have supervillains, where you have crazed cyborgs who are trying to destroy Earth and digitize it and then destroy it. Yes, obviously, it's a good thing to have the group of, you know, superheroes to counteract them. Obviously, it's not a real-world question. If the superheroes actually existed in the real world, then it would be a completely different question. But so we got to, you know, raise the question and answer it and play around with it and say, you know, and again, it's kind of political. You know, it kind of shows that, you know, there's not always a right and a wrong, or a Republican and a Democrat, or a communist.
There's ambiguities in life too.
Yeah.
I've been wondering when you were going to show up. Terry McGinnis. Or do you prefer being called Batman?
Is this meant in any way to wrap anything up? I mean, you get the feeling, even with epilogue, you're putting a little coda on the entire Terry McGinnis thing with the marriage at the end. I want to ask you a question. Are you doing the same thing with Justice League, or you're able to go back and do anything you want, but there was a feeling
when epilogue was, we had no idea that we were going to get picked up for another season at that point. We thought for sure that was going to be our last episode, so that was definitely our effort to like wrap everything up and put a nice little ribbon on it.
Right. There's so many references that I got. I'm thinking there must be 10 times more, and then I'm not getting. The origin of Terry McGinnis, he's coming out of a movie version of The Grey Ghost that Adam West played in the original
Batman show. Yeah, we deliberately, we had kind of avoided doing in-jokes and continuity implants in the first couple seasons of Justice League.
I love them.
We wanted the show to stand on its own. We kind of didn't want it to be, you know, necessarily, you know, a continuation of Batman or Superman or whatever. And then after a while, we said, you know what, it's kind of fun to do that stuff. And we started getting more and more into it. And thinking that epilogue was going to be our last episode, we totally jammed as many in-jokes and references and callbacks as we could in there. I mean, that's why we put the Phantasm in there. It's like she doesn't really serve any good purpose there. We just needed an assassin, to be the one.
But that's so much more exciting when you make a Phantasm. And Dwayne, any things that you jammed in there?
You know, not that particular episode, because I sort of saw that as, in a way, sort of the cap to everything from the first Batman through Superman through Justice League, pushing it forward and incorporating and capping not only Batman Beyond, but the whole idea of all these DC characters in this universe. So I was really, really concentrating on hitting all those, and there was actually a lot of story in that. There was a lot we had to do.
Did you lose plot points and you said, oh, I hate to lose this, but we have to, just because of time?
Not from time.
You were saying there was too many plot points.
Yeah.
He said this will never work.
It's like we'll never get all this done. This is not going to happen. I remember we had what I thought was a really good draft, and there wasn't much Justice League in it. And Bruce says, well, I want to do this Justice League scene. And it's like, we don't have room for a Justice League scene. He's like, well, let me tell you the scene. And it's this really lovely scene where Ace dies and Batman comforts
James and I
her.
came up with that bit, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we got room for that. Yeah. And it made the show. It really, like, it focused a lot of of connecting it. I really like that scene.
Now, did you feel once you got the pickup for 13 after this, you all assumed this is the end?
Yes.
We're just going to blow it all out and do everything that we ever dreamed of with this series. Then you find out you got picked up for 13. Did you do the classic? No!
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that wasn't the first time either.
No.
Oh no, that was the second time.
At the end of Justice League, we thought we were done. Right. So it's like, okay,
now what
we're gonna blow up the Watchtower, and then we're gonna
kick Hawkgirl
off the team, and then you want more?
Yeah. So what do we do? Okay, well, we'll change the whole show. All new Watchtower and 52 heroes and half-hour episodes.
That's great because you could have never done the Cadmus arc with the old.
That's
the old show,
situation.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The old with the classic
it
seven.
worked.
Sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
You remember what we did yesterday? We saved the world again. You don't think that has any value? Well, think again, pal. The world needs the Justice League, and the Justice League needs you, Superman.
You must have been spoiled on this particular season because I pretty much followed what you've done from the original Batman through Superman through all of this. And in terms of diversity and the elements of humor and drama and comedy and thought-provoking themes, I don't know how you'd ever top this Cadmus project.
Well, we were pretty happy with it. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but looking back on all of the shows that we've done, I mean, I was pretty proud of it. It seemed like consistently the whole Cadmus arc was like one of the most sustained, consistently well done things that I think I've ever done in my career.
I think those 2 seasons of JLU were just the tightest stories I think we ever worked on. I mean, and the ones we felt that we had the most control over too. Yeah, I'm very proud of working on that series.
And it was like definitely going out on a high note.
Yeah, ringing that bell.
Yeah.
Yep. And then they asked for 13 more.
Isn't that always the way? There's always more to come. There's new deadlines to meet. Well, listen, I want to thank James and Dwayne and Bruce for putting up with a comic book geek like myself, and I had a good time. I hope you guys did too. Thanks a lot. Now let's talk trash.
Yeah.
Who did you really hate the most, besides me?